like with the bars, you know, usually a lot of stuff happens Thursday, Friday nights, right? But you know, where you live, kind of scary.
Police stand guard at an apartment unit where a man was stabbed to death in Mississauga. Good evening, I'm Magda Gebrselassie. A 48-year-old woman is now in custody after police say she fatally stabbed her live-in partner at a Mississauga building. Adrian Chung is live outside of the building on 5 Ann Street. So Adrian, what do we know at this hour?
Well, Magda, we know that the accused in this case has now been charged with second-degree murder. Police are still in that building behind me at apartment 1406. That is where they say the case went down last night. Now, police were called to the scene just before 10:30 p.m. yesterday. Inside, they found the accused 48-year-old Mary Lubanovic. Inside that same unit was 54-year-old Michael Johnston. He was suffering from severe stab wounds, and he would ultimately die inside that apartment. Now, police are treating this as a domestic incident. They say that both of them lived inside that unit, that they were in a relationship. And we got inside the building to speak to some of the residents. They described it as a pretty quiet building, mostly one of middle-aged couples. And while they may have known the victim as well as the accused in passing, very few of them knew what happened.
Yeah, it's very sad, you see. It never happened anything before. So this is the first time this in this building happened. So it's very easy. It's a bad thing, yeah.
You know, you never know who's living on the floor, you know, above you or whatever. Obviously they had a problem, and
it's not very good for the area. But I think it's a one of one, you know. You don't hear of shootings and stuff like that around Port Credit. Maybe in different parts of Mississauga, but not around here.
Now, Adrian, this is the third homicide case of the year in Peel region, but it might also be pointing to a disturbing trend as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Third homicide. And in all of those cases, they are all alleged to be domestic violence cases. And what's more is that in domestic violence cases, it's pretty rare to see the accused be a woman and that the victim, in fact, is a man. In fact, according to stats, it's often the opposite case. According to Peel Police, from 2017 statistics, 86% of domestic violence cases are one where the man is the accused and it's the woman who is the victim. But certainly police say that that doesn't change their approach in how they're handling this case.
I think the better way to look at it is the reality is there are domestic situations between all couples. And we don't want to say that it's one versus another, simply that people in domestic situations get highly charged, emotionally responsible or responsive to situations, and then unfortunately sometimes react like this.
Now, Lubanovic made her first appearance in court this morning, and police say that they are not looking for any other suspects in this case. Magda?
All right, thank you, Adrian. A woman has died after being struck by a GO bus in Hamilton. It happened in the rear parking lot around 2 this afternoon. Paramedics say the victim was an elderly woman, but they have not released her exact age. If you're heading to or from Hamilton, check GO Transit's website for service updates. A man in his 20s is in hospital following an overnight stabbing in Ottawa's West End. Police were called to a home on Dines Road just after 1 a.m. The victim was found there with a stab wound. He was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. No arrests have been made, but police do have a suspect. The search continues for a missing couple from the town of Kapuskasing in northern Ontario. Today, the Royal Canadian Air Force launched a major search and rescue operation to find Jody and Nicole Blais. The couple has been missing since Monday. They left the Sudbury Airport in a helicopter, heading for another town a few hours away, and they haven't been seen or heard from since. Throughout this week, provincial police, military personnel, and search and rescue teams, as well as family and friends, have been working to try to find them. Thousands took over the streets of downtown Toronto this afternoon for the International Women's Day March. With slogans and signs, the energized crowd celebrated women's achievements, but as Kelda Yoon reports, they also shed light on the inequality that still exists.
Women united will never be defeated! We are fearless is the theme of the march.
I feel very empowered.
Look at us. Look at us. It's amazing.
Sponsored by the group Women Working with Immigrant Women, this year the focus was on dignity and fairness for all workers and the importance of supporting social programs like healthcare and education.
It's important to know that migrant women are rarely ever talked about when we look at women's rights.
I believe that we need to fight what's happening in our province right now, and I work for a coalition that believes in universal childcare, and we're getting further and further from that.
Women here today say these are just some of the issues they have been fighting for decades, ever since the first Toronto Women's March back in 1978 that drew almost 2,000 participants.
There have been a lot of comments in the press in recent months saying, is the women's movement dead?
That was Carolyn Egan back then, one of the organizers of that first ever march.
41 years later, how do you feel?
Well, I think we proved in '78 and we're proving it again today in 2019. The women's movement is far from dead. It's alive, it's fighting. In those days, we were certainly fighting for reproductive rights, abortion rights. We were fighting for childcare, equal pay. We were fighting against the deportation of Jamaican mothers, which were caregivers at that time. So the issues, we make great gains, but the issues are very much still the same.
Immigrants! But one thing Egan says that has definitely changed is the crowd.
Black lives matter! Yeah. The diversity is extraordinary today. We are very reflective of the city in which we live. There's no doubt about it.
While celebrating that, one message this group hopes will reverberate is also this: not all of them are treated the same.
There are tons of women out here, women of color, Indigenous women, trans women, who don't have those basic rights and are treated very differently. And I think for us all to really stand in solidarity together, we have to be intersectional and inclusive.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
They've been out of their homes since a fire swept through their building last summer. Now the residents of 650 Parliament will have to wait even longer to move back in. The more than 1,500 people were put out after a massive 6-alarm fire in August. They expected to move back in early this year. That date was pushed back to June, and now it's been pushed back again to late August. Up until now, the property management company has been helping residents with temporary accommodations. If you're planning to head outdoors near the Credit River, you'll want to stay away from the water. The Credit Valley Conservation Authority is warning that melting snow and ice could cause flooding. City crews will monitor the water levels, but they're asking for residents to avoid waterways, especially children and pets. Sophia Kambalia joins us now with the first look at the weather. So how's it looking out there?
It will continue to be wet. You mentioned some of the flood alerts and some of the low-lying waterway areas. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's talk about spring, because it's certainly starting to feel like that. I'm beginning to think that maybe the groundhog wasn't all wrong last month. The bitterly cold temperatures of the past week are a thing of the past. And even in the pre-dawn hours, we're staying around the freezing mark and above throughout Sunday. But these beautiful spring-like temperatures will come at the cost of a spring-like storm. Plenty of moisture in the form of a robust Colorado low to come into our neck of the woods late tonight and into tomorrow. But the silver lining is, along with it, a lot of warmer Gulf air. It's a Gulf-esque storm, and that means, you know, a taste of spring, which we have all been waiting for. But we're in that transition season, right? So along with that and the colder air that still is in place, we will have some periods of freezing rain and ice pellets and freezing drizzle throughout the overnight period. So it could be a little bit slick. I'll show you the areas in a minute. But this is really going to be a rainstorm. You mentioned the flood warning and the low-lying waterways a moment ago. This isn't a ton of rain, but when you couple this with a melting ice pack and a snowpack and more rain coming in, definitely hydroplaning possible and some flooding. Clear those storm drains if you can right now, folks. More of a rain story into the southwest, and then in that middle ground, especially higher elevation, you could have a few hours of some slick periods before the rain comes and washes it away. Now, I got a treat for you in the long-range forecast when I see you in a few minutes. We are on the ascent, folks, this week for March break for the double digits.
Can't wait to hear it. Thank you, Sophia. This MP for Whitby says she was met with anger by Justin Trudeau after telling him she won't be seeking re-election this October. The Prime Minister's office is denying there was any hostility. The latest on those allegations after the break. A Liberal MP says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yelled at her when she told him she was stepping down. In an exclusive interview with the Globe and Mail, Selina Caesar-Chavannes gave details of interactions she had with the Prime Minister. And she says one was witnessed by other members of the House. Lorenda Redekop has more on the controversy, including reaction from the Prime Minister's office.
Selina Caesar-Chavannes represents the riding of Whitby in the Toronto area. She's a first-term MP who's worked closely with the Prime Minister. She at one point served as his parliamentary secretary. She tells the Globe and Mail that she was met with anger from Justin Trudeau when she told him she would not run in the next election. She tells the newspaper he was yelling that I didn't appreciate him, that he'd given me so much. She told the newspaper she yelled back and Trudeau apologized. Then she said that when she tried to approach him a week later, she received a hostile response. That initial encounter goes back to February 12th, and that's the same day that Jody Wilson-Raybould quit cabinet. Caesar-Chavannes says the Prime Minister told her to wait until March to announce her decision. Her impression was that he worried about the optics of two women of color leaving. This gives context to a cryptic tweet from her earlier this week. I did come to you recently, twice. Remember your reactions? She posted it the same day that Trudeau held a news conference about the controversy over SNC-Lavalin and Wilson-Raybould.
Real leadership is about listening, learning, and compassion.
The Prime Minister's office has provided a statement saying the Prime Minister has deep respect for Selina Caesar-Chavannes. There's no question the conversations in February were emotional, but there was absolutely no hostility. As the Prime Minister said, he is committed to fostering an environment where ministers, caucus, and staff feel comfortable approaching him when they have concerns or disagreements. That happened here. She's the third female Liberal MP raising concerns about this government. Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott both quit cabinet. Today, Trudeau spoke at a teachers' conference.
We have faced a tough few weeks in regards to some of the members of our team and some real differences of perspective and opinion. And I regret that it has happened this way.
CBC News reached out to Caesar-Chavannes. She declined our request for an interview. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Whitby, Ontario.
More satellite images have been released, suggesting North Korea may be planning to launch some kind of rocket. The latest images are of a launch pad and come after early images showed construction on a nuclear facility. And all this activity comes after last month's failed summit between President Donald Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un. Stephen D'Souza has more.
Just 2 days after Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un's summit in Hanoi ended abruptly with no agreement, it appears the North Koreans got to work. Experts say new satellite imagery taken this week shows a key missile site was quickly rebuilt, equipment put in place, and preparations made for something.
It's entirely possible that North Korea began to restart their programs at this site.
The Sohae site was partially dismantled just before last year's Singapore summit, and experts say the recent work there shows how quickly North Korea can reverse course. Meanwhile, similar imagery from another site near Pyongyang shows the North may be readying to launch a missile or satellite. Either way, such a test would heighten international tensions, and critics say show the president has put too much faith in a brutal dictator.
This president really hasn't had a strategy when it comes to North Korea. Has been all over the map over the last 2 years. That was a mistake. We have gotten absolutely nothing for it, and all Kim has done is play us for suckers.
Trump, though, continues to push his personal connection with Kim Jong-un.
Our relationship with North Korea, Kim Jong-un and myself, Chairman Kim, I think it's a very good one. I think it remains good. Let's see what happens. But I would be very disappointed if I saw testing.
Some experts say Kim may be playing a risky game, showing displeasure over the result in Hanoi while trying to pressure the U.S. back to the table. Other observers suggest after the failure of the second summit, the North Korean leader needed to save face.
I think Kim Jong-un certainly feels certain political pressure to show to his people, at least, that he is still in control.
Both sides have left the door open for talks to continue. The question is, will that door slam shut if North Korea goes ahead with the test? Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Pro and anti-government protesters took part in political rallies today in Venezuela. The opposition rally was called by self-declared interim president Juan Guaido. It comes in the middle of the worst power outage in years. Venezuelans have been dealing with hyperinflation and a widespread shortage of basic necessities for months. President Nicolas Maduro, who organized his own protest today, denies that the country is in crisis. He claims the U.S. is trying to sabotage the country. U.S. authorities have indicted Jussie Smollett on 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct. The actor and singer was charged last month for allegedly faking a hate crime. One of his attorneys has said the actor maintains his innocence. CBC's Yelena Adzik has more.
Just under 1 month. That's how long it took for TV actor Jussie Smollett's real-life persona to be recast from victim of a vicious attack to perpetrator of an elaborate hoax. At least that's the viewpoint of the Chicago Police Department. And now their case against him has propelled a grand jury to indict Smollett on 16 felony counts related to making a false report that he was attacked by 2 men who shouted racial and homophobic slurs. Here's how those 16 counts break down. 8 counts from what he initially told the officer who responded to the report of the attack, and 8 for what he later told a detective. In other words, it would appear Smollett received 1 count for each allegedly false statement he made during the 2 interviews with police. The indictment, dated Thursday and made public yesterday, gives details of the disorderly conduct charge against him. It elaborates on the allegation that he falsely reported that he was attacked on January 28th by 2 masked men who hurled racial and homophobic slurs at the black and openly gay actor. He says they beat him, threw an unidentified liquid chemical on him, and looped a rope tied like a noose around his neck. Well, Chicago police have since put forth the notion that Smollett staged the attack himself, arguably because he wasn't satisfied with his salary on the hit show Empire. But his attorney, Mark Gregario, says that's not true.
Tikoff, when they said he did it because he wanted a raise,
Right.
that's demonstrably false. I mean, there's nobody who's ever said that. There's been people who've said he did it because of something else. Every single reason they put out there has been demonstrably false. And then guess what happens? They walk it back. So take a look at what the reporting was. I understand it makes a good lurid story, but I would just counsel you to wait.
Now, while the producers behind Empire decided to remove Smollett's character, Jamal, from the final 2 episodes of the season to avoid further disruption on set, we have no new comment from them since this latest indictment, and no comment from the network that airs the show, Fox. But there will be plenty of comments to come, and we'll be watching. Yelena Adzik, CBC News, Toronto.
For years, it's been notorious for being one of the city's most confusing intersections. But today, Spaghetti Junction is getting a makeover.
The intersection was very much like a highway interchange with on-ramps and off-ramps. The new intersections are going to be at grade, very pedestrian friendly, wide boulevards in the streetscapes with planters and trees, dedicated bicycle lanes. So it'll be quite something.
This is what's left of one of two bridges that hung over the intersection on Kipling Avenue between Dundas and Bloor Streets. Both are being knocked down this weekend. The area is completely closed off until Tuesday. Demolition is part of a revitalization of the area that has been in the works for a decade. Well, he has been called the Key Master, the Time Master, the Keeper of Time. Every spring and fall, John Scott climbs up clock towers across Toronto to change time. He will be making the journey up in a few hours when the clocks move forward 1 hour. So have a look.
There's a saying, a properly operating tower clock shows the well-being of the community. If it's indicating the wrong time, any visitor, they'd look at that and they'd kind of scratch their head and, what's going on with this town? From ground level, there's about 369 steps. I'd put my request in for an elevator to be replaced. I'm still waiting for a reply. When I first come up into the clock room, I'm using all my senses. This mechanism has a heartbeat, and if there's anything different or an off beat or no tick, something, I'll pick up on that.
Safia Kambalia is back with another look at the weather. You promised warmer weather, so is it coming?
Well, he personified time quite well. We'll talk about the 1 hour of sleep that we might lose tonight. And yes, we get the warmer weather along with it. Good news is to come. And along with spring-like weather is springing forward. Remember, 2 a.m. local time, the clocks move ahead 1 hour. Send the message to my kids that they sleep in the extra hour as well. Spring-like weather, comparative warmth, the cold temperatures of the past week have made their exit, and it is perfectly timed with the onset of March break. Gulf air is coming in, though, along with some Gulf moisture. We talked about the Colorado low. Let's give you some of the timing now and some of the main details to watch out for, and then I'm going to show you your 7-day because it's going to get mighty warm. We start off with a few flurries, maybe, and then we get into some of the periods of freezing rain and freezing drizzle into the overnight hours. Hey, not a huge story to write home about unless you are planning on doing any traveling early for your March break. Saturday into Sunday is when things could either be a little bit slick or a little bit wet. And then look at this. Anything above zero after what we've experienced is actually really nice, right? We're just a bit below seasonal, but plenty of sunshine for the first half of your March break, of your work week if you are working. And then the ascent to double digits, folks. It comes with another potential system, another kind of messy Colorado low. But hey, come on, we'll take 10 degrees after what we've had. We're in that transitional season. The second half of March is going to be a little bit warmer. Spring-like weather to kick it all off. Rain tonight and into tomorrow will be the major story, along with some slick conditions. Remember, we'll have melting snowpacks as well and some gusty conditions along the lake shores. But enjoy the warm-up and be prepared for some wet or some slippery weather if you're headed out into the overnight period, and get those clocks changed if you need to.
Thank you, Safia.
You're welcome.
Well, downtown Toronto just got a little sweeter with the return of the Sugar Shack. Here's a sampling from some of the people taking in this maple syrup-themed event.
It's good. Yeah. We had the maple taffy.
They really like the maple taffy.
Yeah.
Well, this is my first time coming here, but like I really like it. It's better than just staying home and doing nothing, and like it's a good weather, really.
Along with the taffy, there were several other maple-infused treats to try. Now, visitors were also taking in the ice carving competition as well. There was live music and also some games for the kids. The event continues tomorrow at 11 a.m. on the waterfront at Sherbourne and Queens Quay. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. You can stay caught up on the news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night.